Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. I have an interesting guest for you today, former Redskins coach Jim Zorn, who will be back in town on February 8th as the coach and general manager of the Seattle Dragons of the XFL. We discussed the XFL, of course, but also his Redskins days. How long did it take for him to get over this experience? What did he learn? Was he bitter? And then I close it out with a few thoughts. One leftover mailbag question on trading the second overall pick, and then a few thoughts on Vernon Davis retiring. But first, here's my conversation with Jim Zorn. And now I'm joined by the Seattle Dragons general manager and head coach and former Redskins coach Jim Zorn. Always an interesting guy to talk to, was a very good player in his career. If you guys don't remember him, go look at the stats. Of all these mobile quarterbacks these days, Zorn was almost not a pioneer, but one of the early ones, and was very good at it. So, Jim, thank you for joining me. And I want to start with this. You were out of the coaching game for a while. Why did you want to get back in?
Well, I think partly I had continued on, even though I wasn't on a staff. I was coaching individual QBs, and I think I bugged my wife for a couple years, talking about football, not so much trying to get her to understand it, but I think she saw that I still had passion for it. I really enjoyed working individually with quarterbacks that I was working with locally and around the nation. So when the opportunity of this league came up, Oliver Luck really was one of the key reasons that I came into the league, because he had to finally convince me that there was a team going to be in Seattle, and he gave me the opportunity to be the head coach of it, and explain what the goals of the league was going to be. And I jumped in. I'm glad I did as well.
And I was going to ask you, you have your first game coming up this weekend in Washington against the DC Defenders. What have you enjoyed thus far about working with these XFL players?
Yeah, I think that every XFL player that is here because he wants to improve himself and wants to show what he can do. He wants, they all, a lot of them have a little chip on their shoulder for either being disappointed in an experience of trying to get into the NFL or try to play at these high levels. And then even I think the Alliance League, as it was going along, when it went defunct, these players were beginning to improve. So there's a strong desire in these players. And then the other part of this thing is to see my coaching staff, or all these coaching staffs, I'm sure, have coaches that either have been out for a year,
right,
or they've gone from the NCAA to the XFL now and trying to work their way in their careers to win championships wherever they're at a higher level.
Is there something with the way the XFL is going to be structured that that really kind of appeals to you?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Playing the game and trying to help players get better, and to watch coaches teach and help their own individual players get better. That's a big part of it. I don't know if it's especially the XFL,
right,
if you will. What I love about how the league is growing and evolving, if you will, is we have got a pretty good motto, if you think about it. One of the things that Vince McMahon, who owns the league, started was for the love of the game, actually for the love of football. And that's a big part of it with our players and our coaches. You have to really love it to play this game, because it it's really hard to work together as a team and to do this over and over. You know, our job is to help our players punish themselves,
right.
and make sacrifices and things like that. And you got to love that part of it to be able to do it for a long period of time.
There's also, I'm guessing, something with your nature seems to be somebody who's not afraid to try something new. I mean, I'd forgotten some of the stuff that you used to be involved in, like college badminton. You're on the college badminton team. You're speed skating. You know, you're one of the first guys riding the Zamboni machine. You seem to like to do some different things, and I wonder if that part appealed to you too, to be part of a startup like this.
Yes, you have researched me way back. You're right, and I have done all those things. Really enjoyed them, but that's really an interesting aspect, because I think my wife tells me all the time, you know, why do you want to take a risk with all these new things? And I guess number one, I do take risks, but you know, life's about that. I try to stay alive, right? I'm not taking risks for to risk life, limb, and family, but I do like to try new things, and I like to follow through. Right. That's really one of the things as well. I like to get better at these new things you try, because I know in the beginning it could be embarrassing. When you start surfing, it's not like you just get up, and you got to be willing to be embarrassed a little bit before you can really get better and show what your real talent is.
Absolutely. I'm curious too, during this interim when you're coaching, you know, the individual quarterbacks and all that, did you try to get back into the NFL?
Oh yeah, I have. And some of the opportunities I have just turned down because it's not just getting in at all costs. So I've turned down certain situations. Okay. But I guess the right situation, there wasn't any real solid situation that would come up where I felt like, yes, this is for me. If one came up in the future, who knows? I'm still I still feel like, you know, I think maybe not all guys, but in my mind, shoot, I could still play.
Right.
I'm sniffing because it's probably not true, but you know, in your mind, you kind of get this idea that you can just continue on. So passion's there. I'm not doing it because I feel like I can't do anything else. I do feel like I'm, it's a significant time in these young men's lives, and I'm hoping to influence it in a positive way and help these coaches come together and improve their skill level, and maybe they'll get to other places.
Right.
So I'm only concentrating on what I'm doing right now.
Sure, and that's all. That seems to be what you've always done. But when you're talking about like even just like looking at the right spots, I mean, is it more? Are you looking for? Were you looking for a specific position title, OC, or just like more of a team fit, or what is it?
Yeah, I would think my skill set is coaching, teaching, being having responsibility, and that's what I would be continuing to look for.
Okay.
And if it's a perfect situation, great. But that's not really what why you take a job. It's not trying to set things up. It's really trying to grow into the staff you're
right.
in and what you're doing, and becoming better each day. That's the idea of being a part of the staff.
What did you learn about yourself after coaching in Washington?
Well, I would imagine I learned. I've been learning a lot of things after Washington. I think that there was a lot of takeaway from that. For me, it was being I've had unfinished business, trying to help develop a group and continue to grow and learn. And I didn't get the chance to finish what I started there.
And that's got to be a hard feeling for you. But are there things that you learned just even as being a head coach that now you're applying to what you're doing now?
Yeah, and I think being a head coach and watching the staff work and making sure the staff has everything they need, so that as they're training either the entire offense or defense or special teams, supporting them, and then knowing what we're doing and trying to always ask questions to myself and to the staff about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and making sure that they're supported, making sure it's sound, and making sure it all fits together. So when we go out and play, we all know, have the same goals and the same efforts in all three phases. And
you had told a newspaper in Spokane recently that you felt you were in your element as a head coach back then. Why? And this, I don't mean this snidely, but why did you feel that way? What told you that?
Yeah, and what told me that was when I went to work every day, I felt like because of all the interactions throughout the day with individual coaches, with individual staff members, I felt like I never felt out of place in any of the environments that that a head coach has to be in, whether it's working with staff on or off the field, working with the business part of it, the media part of it, and then with the players and the coaches. I just felt like I really enjoyed it and felt like I was, I had some capabilities in all those arenas.
And obviously, Jim, I don't want to rehash all the stuff that happened there, but like when you say you're happy you did it and it was a good experience, there was a lot of stuff that went on here that would have torn up other people. Why didn't it do that for you?
Well, one of the things is, and this was one of our coaches, a guy named Sherman Smith, and he was my offensive coordinator, really a solid coach, a solid man, if you will. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he always cited was that when adversity strikes, you get to really find out what your belief system is. And because a lot of people talk about, hey, we got to stick with this, we got to last, we got to work through all the issues, and we can't just give up what we believe in. And I think that was probably one of the major things that I learned is when you coach, even when you're winning, there's adversity.
Yeah, always.
And then when you're losing, it's trying to keep that team focused and not lose sight of what your goals are. And I think those things meant a lot to me as we worked through all the difficult times and even the great times that we had.
Yeah, you guys started off very well. That was it was rolling, and some injuries hit, and I'm also curious how you view it, because, and again, I'm not rehashing specific incident or anything like that, but like they gave you a great opportunity, but then there were some things that happened that second year that could leave a lot of people bitter. Was it hard not to be bitter, or did you just view it as, hey, this is a good opportunity, and I'm just going to move on?
Well, I didn't take light of anything that happened, but I didn't want to hash it out through media and through just trying to complain about or have excuses about what didn't happen or what happened and all that kind of stuff. And I think if you dig, you can see kind of things that did happen. So it's not about just shaking the dust off my feet or clapping my hands and moving on. I had to really think about what the experiences were and take all the experiences, whether they were great or whether they were difficult, and just become a better person because of it, and a better coach and a better in whatever circumstance I'm in, whatever the situation calls for. Those are the things that I think a person grow.
And you always seen somebody who's been in a constant growth pattern throughout your life, whether new experiences or anything like that. So was there a part here that was harder to overcome for you mentally?
I think there probably were some difficult things that were harder than other things, but I'm not. I wouldn't whine about anything.
Yeah, that's never been your nature. True. I got two more things for you too. Then, because again, you got thrust into position here, and you go from a quarterback's coach to this big leap. You think you're here as an OC. Is there ever a part of you that wonders, I wonder if I had been an OC for a couple of years and then moved up and proved this and moved up over here? Things have gone differently for me at all? Do you ever wonder that?
Oh yeah. But that wasn't it. So you can wonder it, but that's I think you've got to play the circumstances. If you could predict the future, a lot of people would do probably different things.
Absolutely.
And nobody can. So you got to go based on what has been said and what you believe, and then if things go in a different direction or work out differently, that's what you got to deal with at that particular time. And I think that's all I could do.
Right. And that's the last thing is there anything you wish that, not wish, but that you look back, I wish I had done this differently? Anything?
Yes. But I could say that, yes. And specifically, I wish we'd have been, 16-0
yes,
every year, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but even in the details, I would say there's some things that I'm doing differently today because I know some of the things that I took on as being a head coach and being my first time. I was learning as I was going along, and I had some really good support, and I didn't have support in other areas.
Right.
So, I would do I could do things differently from that standpoint, and I'm doing them now. Or trying to do them better.
Like what?
And I have a different kind of support because I'm older, I guess, and I learn from my mistakes. But I could say that about everything, even as an NFL player, as an NFL quarterback. When life's circumstances don't necessarily, it's not roses for any football player because every football player has to work hard. You have to have a toughness, and you have to be able to get better all the time and maintain your talent. Not just maintain your talent, but you really have to get better every single year because there's great athletes that are coming to take all those positions away from the guys that are there. So you got to play. It's such a great thing about playing this game, and being on a team and things of that nature.
It's not every day you get to go bike riding with the president either, too, in a job.
Yeah.
Are you still doing a lot of bike riding?
I am.
Good.
Not at the present.
I hope not. Yeah.
But before we went to camp, I was doing a lot. There's a lot of riding up here.
Oh yeah.
And I'm still exploring.
That's great. Again, that's your nature. Jim, listen, I appreciate you taking some time out to talk with me. It was great catching up with you, and good luck with the coaching the RSL, and good luck this Saturday.
Hey, I appreciate it. I will see you there.
After this break, I'll be back with some thoughts on trading the second pick, as well as some on Vernon Davis. Welcome back. I answer one leftover mailbag question and give a little context to Vernon Davis's career. So let's get to the mailbag question from Jay Markowitz at JSM Markow, M-A-R-K-O-W. So he wants to know to trade the second pick or not to trade the second pick. That is the question. So I guess we're doing a little Shakespeare right now. But anyway, Jay, that will be the question for the next few months. We'll be discussing this for a while, but my initial thoughts are pretty simple. If you think Chase Young can be a transformative player, a game changer for that defense, then you don't trade the pick. They lack elite players. He can be an elite player potentially. I had one evaluator tell me that he's the kind of guy that can help your team go 12-4. He pointed out some other guys on the roster at the pass rusher position who he felt were more like 8-8 guys. Now, of course, this is if Young hits. There's no guarantee that he'll hit, just like there's no guarantee that Joe Burrow will be the same quarterback in the NFL that he was this past year for LSU. And just like there's no safe pick after number 2 either. Just getting more picks doesn't mean you're going to hit on more guys. You have more chances, doesn't mean it'll work. So everything comes with a level of risk. Each player carries a level of risk or uncertainty. That's true with the trade, whether you do or you don't. But if the Redskins rate corner Jeffrey Okudah or linebacker Isaiah Simmons, for example, at or near the same level as Young, then I think you have to look at trading back. Both those players can be impact guys too. Then you'd have a couple more picks, and they do need to get some more guys. It depends on what they do in free agency. What if they do get a corner in free agency? Well, then you don't need a Jeffrey Okudah necessarily. Or what if you still need a left tackle or need a tackle? Maybe you need some more picks higher in the draft. So there's a lot of mitigating factors here. And the assumption has long been that Miami would be the trade partner because it has 2 other first-round picks. So that makes sense. But there are some things to consider here. They can offer more, so with other teams right behind them, the Chargers and the Panthers, for example, knowing this, it also means they might only need to move to the 3rd spot in order to take Tua Tagovailoa if that's who they want to take. That's the assumption, of course. The Chargers and the Panthers could move up, but if they're scared off by what the cost might be, then they may just be content to staying there. And so it may mean that the 3rd pick might be the sweet spot. And I've kind of heard that a couple times. Long way to go. I think the assumption is, too, that Carolina is going to draft a quarterback. That might be incorrect as well, depending on what they truly feel about Cam Newton, who still has another year left on his contract. There's so many factors that are going to come into play with not only whether or not the Redskins should, but where would the team be willing to move up to, or where would they feel they need to move up to get that. So that's why the 3rd pick might actually be the sweet spot for Miami. And again, that's just a guess. And again, it's what I've heard a couple times. Then it would depend, of course, on what else Miami offers. I'd want another number 1 this year, probably a 2nd this year, and maybe a 1 next year as well. The evaluator I spoke to said he'd want 2 draft picks and a player in return, but he would not look to trade the pick because he feels Young is that good. Now, that's just one opinion. And let me say this. The reason why I also bring up getting a 1 for next year is because if Dwayne Haskins doesn't hit, if he doesn't, there's no guarantee that he's going to continue to improve. There are things that these guys want to see, and I think that's why they've said some of the things they have, that they like how he finished, but they still aren't sold yet that they have their guy for the next 5-10 years. So if that's the case, let's say that Dwayne Haskins goes out there, doesn't have a good year. Well, if you have an extra 1st-round pick in your arsenal next year, you have more to move up with if you wanted to go that way. And if you don't, then you still have 2 first-round picks, and you can still add some more young talent that way. I think you have to consider all, because what if a silly offer is made just because someone loves Tua that much and is confident in his health? Personally, I think that's a lot to give up for him because of the durability concerns, but he plays quarterback and he is damn good. And then the final factor, what do those teams think of Justin Herbert, Jordan Love? So saying the Redskins should trade the pick is all well and good, but I don't think it's that easy. The team on the other end might be the one with more control or maybe more options. And if the return isn't good, then it's just not worth it for the Redskins. They need elite talent, not just more picks. Okay, now I want to get on to, one big thought on Vernon Davis now that he's retired. And I wanted to acknowledge the end of his NFL career and share some level of insight into what made him such a good player for so long. There's a consistency to him, and you could see that in his approach. He would catch extra passes off the jugs machine after every practice. He'd go home and catch tennis balls shot at him as well, just to keep working on his hands, work on his hands. He stretched, he took care of his body, and he also matured as a pro as he developed. Early in his career, he told me before that he would do what a lot of young men in the NFL do, and heck, a lot of young men anywhere. Go to clubs, chase women. but he also wanted to have a long career. So he knew he had to rededicate himself to being able to have one. And I also think he was taking a certain approach with these things when he first got to the NFL, because one thing he did tell me too is you can't just decide midway through that now you're going to take it seriously. You have to take it seriously, but you also have to, while you're doing your jobs over here, you eventually realize you've got to take care of it over here as well. I think that's what he kind of got to. I think he realized he wanted to have a long career, so he knew he had to rededicate himself to being able to have one. Later, while in San Francisco, he also realized that he was starting to have too many things outside of football. When the Redskins signed him, I had some people tell me that they felt he was done because he had so many outside interests. And he admitted to me that was the case. And in recent years, his focus during the season was only on football. If you asked him a question about his outside interest during the season, he would tell you, I'll talk about that after the season. Once the season began, it was all football. Nothing about movies, all football. Because he didn't want anyone to think that his mind wasn't on football. And it's how he lasted until he was 35 years old and could still run past linebackers. I mean, he was a bit of an athletic marvel at times. Davis would have been an excellent complementary tight end to Jordan Reed had Reed been able to stay healthy. Davis's speed, and I think that's one of the big regrets here with this talent that you had in that room, is Davis's speed and Reed's quickness in winning those one-on-one battles would result in mismatches when both were on the field. Big plays, that's when you get some big plays. But when Davis needed to play Reed's role as he had too often, he couldn't win as quickly off the line. And there were plays and examples of plays where I'd see Davis try to set the linebacker and cut in, cut back out, and it's a route that it's something that Jordan Reed does exceptionally well, but not Davis. He wasn't quick, he was fast. So that those quick steps, he sometimes could not create the separation, and it would lead to passes that should have been open but weren't. But when he's paired against a linebacker, you could see him running past him for a long game. He was, again, an amazing talent. That consistency showed with how he dealt with everyone in the building, including the media. He was always smiling. If you said hello to him, he would smile and say hello back. He would ask how you're doing. He was always upbeat, always cordial. If you only wanted to know, when you were interviewing him, if you only wanted to know what made, say, like the defense they were playing that week good, he would give you a soundbite that TVs could run with, and that would work okay. If you pressed him for more details, well, there weren't always more details that he could give. And so I think there was sometimes you're like, okay, there were some just sound bites. But if you asked him about various aspects of the position or about something he was passionate about with football, that's when you'd see the real Davis, when you get some really good answers. He was, and so I think that's why, to me, all those reasons are why he was fun to cover and a true professional, and he's earned a good send-off. Well, that's it for this week. A big thank you to Jim Zorn for joining me and to the Seattle Dragons PR chief, Jim Chrisman, for lining it up. Check out the XFL. I know I'm going to do that a couple times just to see what it's about. And as always, thank you for listening. Talk to you soon.